Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. What's happening, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my overview of all of these hardcovers from Dark Horse Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. So today we're going to be taking a look inside of each and every one of these hardcovers that have come out recently from Dark Horse Comics. We have a continuation of some series, we have some brand new series, some original graphic novels, and another huge library edition here with Madman, Volume 5. So, as always, I leave timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around in case you're curious about one or two books. And before you do, don't forget to smash that like button, please. That goes a long way for us here on the channel. Alright, let's start today with a little love story. Let's do Hellboy in Love. Hellboy in Love. This is a hardcover and it is standard size and art on board, so no dust jacket. And this particular series, it was 5-issue miniseries, is all collected in here. The book retails for $24.99 and it has 136 pages. Written by Mike Mignola and Christopher Golden, who have been collaborating together for a long time. Matt Smith doing the art and colors by Dave Stewart. Clem Robbins doing the lettering. And it is exactly what it states it is on the cover. It is Hellboy falling in love. This, of course, is a flashback series that I've been enjoying. If you've read Hellboy, if you've watched my video on the reading order of Hellboy, you kind of know where things are heading, but it's always nice that Hellboy has this long time that you could write stories about. I mean, they've done the same thing with the BPRD, and this is taking place in 1972, and Hellboy ends up meeting this archaeologist named Anastasia Bransfield, and she is one not to shy away from demons. She has a job to do, and that is to take this case, kind of like your MacGuffin, and deliver it to the appropriate party. However, the little demons here also want said case. So once they take it, it's up to her and Hellboy to team up together to find said case. And they go through this journey in the UK, and it's just a really cute story to see the way that Hellboy acts around her. Now, we've seen Hellboy when he crushes on girls and whenever he has a relationship, but it is interesting to see the beginning of that relationship with this new character. This is what the artwork looks like, so it's very reminiscent of that Hellboy universe type of art. And the creature designs, and speaking of creature designs, yeah, I'm not going to flip too much through here so people can enjoy the story for themselves. All the way in the back is where you're going to find the extras, like character designs or original art and sketches. And I love that about the Hellboy books, that they always put character designs and just all these extras in every one of their collections. And then you have some sketches and covers and variant covers. The book does have sewn binding, and like I mentioned, 136 pages. And that is Hellboy in Love. Spy Superb is a very interesting series. This came sealed, and it has a leaflet, so yay, Team Leaflet. And I was expecting something like Super Spy, which I freaking love. That almost made it in my top 10 last year. This one has a dust jacket, and those are the two main characters with a spine, and your flaps right here. But what this is a little bit different than Super Spy. This is the story of Jay. So collected in here is Spy Superb 1 through 3. The book retails for $39.99. It is a standard size hardcover, and it has 176 pages. All of this by Matt Kent and Charlene Kent. So it's still a book about spies, but not the best spy. And I mentioned the character of Jay. So early on in the story, we learned the history of the spy Superb. And what the spy Superb is, it was like a idea between the US government and the French intelligence to make up a spy Superb during World War II, after the original spy Superb died, to keep the enemies at bay, to make them think that there is still a spy Superb out there. And what they were doing was drafting just normal people into the services, and they have been doing this for generations. And the new spies, whenever they become the spy Superb, had no idea that they were being drafted for this particular mission. So that's the basis of this. In this last incarnation of the Spy Superb, by the way, the Spy Superb is somebody, as you probably think, like Agent 007, right? Like Bond, the best of the best. And if our enemies think, I say ours, like I work for the intelligence, if the enemies of the US and French intelligence think that there's still a super spy out there, or I'm sorry, a Spy Superb, then they're going to think twice about messing with France and the United States. Of course, that doesn't stop them from doing that. The latest incarnation, though, is this guy named Jay Bartholomew, who is the most unlikeliest spy Superb that has ever been a spy. He is kind of a big loser. He's a little bit overweight. He walks around with a book, and he's quoting famous quotes, book quotes at that. This does come with a ribbon, by the way. And he gets just put into this world where he has to fight off against enemies that break into his house, and by pure happenstance, he's able to beat them. There is another spy that joins him, but you don't know at first. Is she trying to kill him, or is she trying to help him? What exactly does she want with him? I found this to be a very funny story, and 3 issues, I think that's enough, because the joke does play heavy throughout this. The book does have sewn binding, and it is printed in this really thick matte paper. The flashback scenes are done with this color tone right here. And in the back, we do have the extras, like the covers of the series and variant covers. I was expecting something like Super Spy, but instead I got this. So it did make me laugh and chuckle a few times, even though Jay annoyed the hell out of me for most of the book. But I think that's the purpose of him. I love the design of this hardcover too, with this dust jacket. Order and Outrage, Volume 1. This is a book that just came out in early January. And this is written by Jim Starlin. And it takes you back to the cosmic side of things where, Jim Starlin is no stranger to. It is a short book. It's only 96 pages, and it retails for $24.99, art on board, and it's an original graphic novel. And he's joined by Rags Morales, who's no stranger to drawing comics. Colors are by Haley Brown, and Michael Hasler is the letterer. This is a beautiful piece. The Blue Woman is a very interesting character. This whole book is very, very hard to follow, I will say. It took me a little bit. I had to read it twice. But it's a short read, but it does continue. So, in this world, and the other thing, by the way, why it took me a little bit to try to get into and figure out, is I never really read the back of the books to explain what the book. I like going into it completely blind. And whenever you have Jim Starlin on a book, I'm there. I'm a big fan of his stuff. So, Dreadstar or the Infinity Saga. But what is happening here is this plot follows this mysterious blue woman, the one that you saw right here in the title page. And she's woken up in a crater, and she gets arrested. So there are 3 time periods that you're following through this book. You have the past, you have the present day, and then you have the how do I put this? There's a past, but then there's also the before, and it's a little bit of a spoiler. Actually, it's all written here, so what separates that. So you have the now and the then and the before. Sorry, it was the then, not the past. So what the basic premise of this is that this is set in this world where genetic engineering is the normal, and the order is pretty much the force in the galaxy. See, the before and the then are different. That sets the laws and regulations when it comes to meeting. So a young woman and her mother escape persecution from the order, and that's who the order is after. And again, taking place in 3 different timelines. This is only book 1. I know there is a second book coming out, and I feel like it's going to fill in a lot more of the gaps. So there is mystical aspects to the book. There's, of course, science fiction here, and it's a little confusing. I'm not going to lie. Actually, no, it's a lot confusing. I had to read it twice to try to understand a lot more of this. It's a 4-issue miniseries that they put together into this particular book, and with gorgeous artwork. Honestly, I haven't seen Rag Morales for a while, and it just has some stunning pieces through here. But it's all about escaping persecution and survival, and the whole mystery as to who this blue woman is. In the very back, you have some covers back here, and these are the ones that are done by Jim Starlin, while your main covers are right before the chapters. Right here. Sewn binding and printed in this thick, glossy paper, and that is Order and Outrage. Frankenstein, New World. And this is all part of the Hellboy universe. And this one taking place in the past. This was a very interesting read. It's a quick read. It's only 4 issues collected in here. And there is no dust jacket, just the art on board. And the book retails for $24.99. And it has 112 pages. So you have Mike Mignola, Christopher Golden, and Thomas Nigoski, Peter Bergting, and Michelle Madsen, with Clem Robbins working on this book. So it is Peter Bergting back on art, and his art is just beautiful. So this is a very interesting take on the story of Frankenstein, because it mainly focuses on Lydia. Is her name? Lilja, maybe is how you pronounce it. And during this particular time, she ends up awakening in a cave this mystical oracle who happens to be Frankenstein. And what they do is they end up exploring the world above together. So it's this whole new world. She escapes, or doesn't really escape. She leaves her village to go with him. And where they go on this journey, you can kind of see it connecting to some of the stories from Hellboy. I like this, and there was another story that I'll be doing an overview here soon of that have ties to the Hellboy universe, but it's the mystical side of the Hellboy universe from the past, and I mean the way past. You don't know actually when this takes place, it just starts. Doesn't give you a time or anything. But I found this to be really interesting because you get the sense that, okay, this isn't Earth. They do have another companion, by the way, that joins them later on. But you get the sense that, no, this isn't Earth, and they're in this whole new world. But where exactly is this? It's a little bit confusing at first, but it's such a quick read that it's just so captivating. And besides, Bergting's artwork is just so beautiful. I love his art. I've been following his art for a long time, and it just really fits the mood and the tone of this particular story. Again, with like all the other Hellboy stories, in the back you get the sketches and character designs. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the bolt nipples there. And the type of monsters that are going to be here. You have some Mignola art and other type of covers in the back. And what other Hellboy and Mignola books there are. 112 pages and retailing for $24.99. That's Frankenstein, New World. The Matriarchs. This is another one of the original graphic novels. art on board, and it is a hardcover. All these are hardcovers, of course. Here are your end sheets and the title page. The Matriarchs in the script is by Luann Brickhouse, Jennifer Rea. Art is by Renee DeLiz and Lauren Affe is the colors. Frank Vetkovic is the letterer. This gives you a little bit of the introduction to these characters, and this is by Aline Chaikin. And I love this piece right here. So the basic premise of this is we have two researchers that are going into a prison. During their visit to this prison, because they're researchers, they end up in the middle of a prison riot. They're able to survive this prison riot somehow, even though they're not police officers, they're not trained, but somehow they're able to survive this. And you find out that what they are is they're part of this matriarch who are vampires, immortal women that trying to keep to themselves. And they do have a villain, like, what is the villain's name? Bathory is the villain throughout this particular story, where they have opposing sides. And I do love this art style. It's very polished. It's not gritty at all. For a book like this, that the premise is about vampires. But they have existed in this world for quite a number of years. And the more you dive into the series, the more that world is explored. As I mentioned, you get to find out more about their past and what their role is, and why some of them are separated, why some of them believe that they can coexist with man, while others, of course, think that no, the path to salvation is the destruction of all man. So it goes back many a years, and I kind of like the build-up. I would say this is actually would make a really good like miniseries, maybe on Max, HBO, whatever the hell it's called now. The book has 120 pages. And now let's look at the back matter, where we have a sketchbook. The book has 120 pages. Retails for $24.99. It does have sewn binding. This one, however, isn't printed on glossy paper. It's printed in this really thick, and I mean thick, matte paper. It's got a matte finish to it. But I really like the way that it looks, like the color, especially these pages right here, which are, of course, set in the past. So that's the Matriarchs Hardcover. And now we've reached that time of the video to check out all of the spines of these books that have been recently released from Dark Horse Comics. And also, a reminder to smash that like button, please. That is a very small thing you can do, but it means the world to us here. Especially since YouTube seems to keep promoting AI shorts. Yeah, they love that. Anyway, let's go ahead and get back to the overview. ElfQuest, Stargazer's Hunt. This is collecting the ElfQuest, Stargazer's Hunt volumes 1 and 2 and put together into one hardcover. This one's $29.99 and it has 208 pages. So Wendy and Richard Pini are back. The script and layouts are by Wendy Pini. Sony Strait, who's no stranger to ElfQuest, does the artworks. Nate Piekos and Blambot, Blambot is the letterer. And the cover's by Wendy Pini. You have not only an introduction by Richard, but also an introduction by Wendy. This is one that, for me, felt a little confusing at first because I hadn't read ElfQuest in years. I haven't read the last... I know that Dark Horse started releasing the omnibus formats, but I haven't read those... Oh my gosh, like the last two Omnis. And I know that they had a finale, so this is after that miniseries, the big finale, where you find out what happens to most of the characters. However, this one is a little bit different. This is coming from the side of the character of Skywise. That's who we're following here. Not just him, because he's not alone. This is after, like I mentioned, the whole story with Cutter and what ended up happening to Cutter. So there was a final quest, and then there's this. So this really revolves around Skywise and his daughter, Jinx. And the Jinx's mother Timian plays a role through here. So if you hadn't read ElfQuest, especially the final volume, the final quest, I believe is what it was called, this might be a little confusing at first. And apparently, I think this spun out, or maybe it was preceded by a miniseries that featured Jinx, because there's some skipping around in here that I was a little confused. And I am reminded of the beauty of ElfQuest. ElfQuest was something I got into. It's one of those, there was Ninja Turtles as far as independent comics, and I was aware of Cerebus, even though I didn't read it until I was a little bit older, like when I was a teenager. But I remember my comic store, the original comic strip in Central Kentucky, had issues of ElfQuest, and I always wanted to read them. And finally, when I found a couple, like in the quarter bin, maybe it was a 10-cent bin. Do they still have 10-cent, like, dime bins? I don't know if they do or not. I was curious, so I picked some up. And it is just this beautiful fantasy world. And this reminds me of that simpler time. But it was all in black and white, of course. This is in color. And set in the... I mean, this is the bookend. So it's like, for me, reading some of the early stuff and knowing these characters, could not remember their names until I read this, and then reading the bookend to what is the finale for the character of Skywise. And what's really cool is in the intro, you can see Richard and Wendy and how they feel about the characters. I love that, reading that introduction and talking about, you're not going to find any kind of violence in here other than the violence that you find in nature. And I thought that was beautifully put, because there is hunting that happens through here. So yes, some animals die so others can be fed. And just beautiful, absolutely beautiful story, taken back to a simpler time. And the way that it's written, it just reminds me of that fantasy era of independent comics. In the back, you do have lots of extras. So these were previously, I believe, graphic novels. I think there were 2 of them. So you have sketches, you have layouts of the art, you have some original art by Wendy. You have more on the story of these characters that appear through here, because some of them will confuse me. And yeah, this is the ElfQuest that I remember. Not that particular issue, but that was the style, because I do remember them being in black and white. So this is the complete ElfQuest right here, and I had the first 2 volumes. Oh my gosh, there's 7 of them? Okay, yeah. I need to catch up on ElfQuest one day. So the book, again, retails for $29.99, and it has 208 pages. No dust jacket art on board, and it is sewn binding and printed in this thick, glossy paper. Next up is Panya, the Mummy's Curse. This is another one of the hardcovers, and it is from the world of Hellboy. So very much like the Frankenstein monster, or sorry, Frankenstein, not Frankenstein's monster, the Mummy makes an appearance through here. Again, it is the team up of Mike Mignola and Christopher Golden, and the artist by Christopher Mitten, and Michelle Madsen doing the colors, and Clem Robbins doing the lettering. And these are, of course, characters that will play a part in the Hellboy universe. This one here is really interesting because it has a couple of twists and turns. This is the story of this young girl in Egypt, Panya. So this one at least lets you know that it's here on Earth, and that you kind of get the idea of when it takes place, because it's BC. So it starts off with the Great Chaos Serpent right here being attacked by the Cat of Ra, and that whole history. So it is taking place in 1339 BC, and we meet this young girl named Panya, who is being told stories by her house servant, and she just loves hearing about the Cat of Ra. So she ends up getting a kitten. Now, something horrible happens to her city, where it just even gets destroyed, and she finds herself alone by the end of the story, where she wanders from town to town. She herself becomes some kind of it's like a maid for another temple, all while having dreams, and by being called to this light, this mysterious light that she keeps seeking out through here. Now, through this particular 4-issue miniseries. By the way, the book retails for $24.99 and it has 112 pages. You do see her get older, and eventually you do see her find this light and what it is. And by the end of this, you see how it ties into the Hellboy universe, a little more so than the Frankenstein book. And I'm all for stories like this. I really enjoy stories like the Hellboy in Love, but these type of stories, oh my gosh, it's completely new and so separated from BPRD and Hellboy that I'm all for it. I hope they keep coming out with more of these type of stories and set all in the past. In the back, of course, is where you're going to find the extras. Right? Let's go back here to the very beginning. You have sketches and layouts for the pages. Beautiful, absolutely stunning artwork, by the way, by Christopher Mitten. Covers and layouts for covers and sketches and other Mike Mignola books. This is another one that is printed in thick glossy paper, and it does have sewn binding. The Horror. This is another one of those books that has art on board, and if you've read the Heart of Darkness of Watch Apocalypse Now, it's practically very similar, almost like an adaptation of those particular stories. So in this particular story that is written by Lars Jacobson, Eduardo Francisco is the artist, which has got phenomenal artwork. Even though it's limited to the colors, Philip Sevi, the colors are still solid whenever they're used, and you'll see what I mean. And then your letterer is Frank Vetkovic. So you have an introduction here by Lars Jacobson telling you a little bit of the history of King Leopold II of Belgium and how he controlled this part of the Congo and trying to make it into a free state by liberating all the slaves in Central Africa. And it's interesting because if you know this particular story, then you know immediately what this is going to be about. So this has an introduction here that is set in the past. By the way, the art is stunning through here. And like I said, the limited color. So there's a sacrifice that happens at the very beginning. And see what I mean? It's just gorgeous. Even though we're looking at a sacrifice, right? It's awful. But that's just gorgeous. So that sacrifice does come into play, and this all takes place in 1885, where we meet Colonel Kurtz and his family that are coming to help liberate the slaves and kind of pave way for King Leopold's new vision of what the Congo should be like. He gets somebody to be his guide, and he picks somebody that's not a Belgian pilot, by the way. So it goes deep into the diving into the jungle, and as you're reading through here, you get to find out more and more what the horror is and how it might not be some personification of it, but just might be a virus, perhaps. It's really interesting, and I love the whole mythological aspect of it, because it is a period piece, but also has aspects of that fantasy and horror, hence the title. It's not like body horror or even supernatural horror, but there's a lot of mystical side to things here. And by the time you finish reading this, you get to find out why they call it the horror. By the way, the priest always reminded me of Timothy Chalamet. I don't know if that's because he's just a big popular actor right now, but his design reminded me of Timothy Chalamet. So here's the whole family. Here's Kurtz, Colonel Kurtz, and then his son, and his daughter, and his wife, and then a couple of the other players that play a big part in this particular story. This is a short story. Most of it in black and white. It kind of reminds me of the black, white, and red. It's 104 pages and retails for $24.99. Last but certainly not least is the latest in the Madman Universe Library Editions. This is the Madman Library Edition Volume 5. We have one more. I think there's enough material for just one more. So here we have a couple of characters that you're probably familiar with, and then of course It Girl, who plays a big role in this book, Madman, Michael Allred, Laura Allred, and Han Allred, and others. The spine of the book, Allred Madman Volume 5, the Dark Horse logo, and then the back of the book. The Madman Comics universe continues with over 490 pages drawn by Legendary Comics creator Michael Allred and friends in this true homage to superhero fiction, metaphysical philosophy, 1950s science fiction films, rock and roll, pop music, and much more. And the ISBN right here, with the retail price being $99.99. Underneath the dust jacket, but first let's look at the flaps. You have a bio on Michael Allred and Laura Allred, and It Girl right there. Underneath the dust jacket is completely the same thing as the DJ. The art on board, the spine, everything is exactly the same as you found on the dust jacket, including the color of Madman up there and down there. Now, these are flat spine. They all have been, and they do have sewn binding and printed in this thick, glossy paper. Now, the stories in here are really interesting because we have like his first graphic novel in here. There's a comic I haven't read in decades that's collected in here. That was part of the Marvel Epic line. Not the collections, the epics, but when Marvel kicked off the Epic line, like with Akira and books like that, there's a story in here that's collected for the first time in years. So we're going to crack this book open and look at the artwork and talk a little bit about the stories found in here. Let's go ahead and open this up. You have your end sheets here, very similar to the end sheets of the previous volumes. What is collected in here: Dead Air, The Everyman, Madman, Hospital Havoc, Crash Metro and the Star Squad, It Girl and the Atomics 1 through 5, 7 through 9, but also issue number 6, and then 10 and 11, and then Tweenage FBI. And then you have the credits for the different artists and writers on this book. Dead Air is, by the way, 504 pages. Dead Air is one of the most interesting stories that's collected in here, because this is I believe the very first graphic novel that Mike Allred worked on, even though he was going as Dalton Allred at the time. I want to say when it came out, it was originally in color. And the basic premise of this, very little to do with Madman, by the way, or you'll see when you read this. The premise of this is about this gentleman named Calvin. And Calvin is waiting for his family to come back home. And what ends up happening is that the signal on the TV goes out, and then martial law is declared because they don't know exactly what's happening. They have a fear of nuclear attack, so no one is allowed to leave their homes. So this is when he takes off with a couple of other people and try to make it out here. So he takes off with some friends and tries to make it out of this particular town and try to find his family. Like I said, it's nothing like the Madman stories that are found through here and colored by Laura Allred. We have another story back here. This is the one that I remember reading, and this is the one from Epic Magazine. This is the story by Mike Allred, but again, he wasn't going as Mike Allred at the time, and Bernie Murault is the artist on here. And this is about a witch that comes back to get revenge on people in modern day, but there is a bit of a flashback here. Again, not like the Madman stories. And also, a little more, I don't want to say sexual, because it's more like the, more just nudity that's in there. And then you have It Girl and the Atomics that's collected through here. And like I mentioned when I was talking about the cover, It Girl plays a majority of the part in this book. You know, you don't really see Madman, you're just getting to see his world. Madwoman, I think, makes a couple of cameo appearances, but for the most part, it is the story of It Girl. But I wanted to talk about those two other graphic novels because I found those really unique. So instead of this being like the Madman library, this almost feels like, oh, this is the Michael Allred library, and I'm all here for it, just to see what his art was like towards the beginning, even though we do have modern colors on it, or his storytelling was like when this was printed as the Marvel Epic, to the stories that we find in his world later on with It Girl. Now, you do have other artists that help out through here, as I mentioned. A majority of it being Mike Norton. And of course, Jamie Rich writing the stories. In the back, we don't have really any, yeah, there's no extras, which is really weird for a Madman book. I was hoping to see some sketches. Well, then again, when you have stories in here that are a lot older, so you do get a little bit of Madman. You're probably not gonna keep those sketches back then, because we are talking about his first graphic novel and his early epic book. The book, again, has 504 pages, retails for $99.99, printed in this thick glossy paper, and it does have sewn binding and a ribbon. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count and build of these books. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking any of these up, if you're hoping some of these smaller hardcovers get released in a bigger size format like this library edition, and if you have any questions, leave them down below. Check out our Patreon and Spreadshop, amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.